Hello, and welcome to my presentation on climate change and humans. How are we impacted? So climate change is an obvious issue in terms of its havoc on our planet, ecosystems, and animals, but we rarely have the delicate conversation of how it truly affects our well-being. This conversation includes areas of our lives impacted by climate change, including our food, water, shelter, health, and as well as our global and international economies. So what are those direct effects? The direct effects of climate change on our species can be vast and difficult to pinpoint and understand. But the first that we will discuss is food and water. According to the U.S. Embassy, climate change and extreme weather are drivers of world hunger. Climate change impacts our ability to grow food due to droughts, floods, and drastic fluctuations in temperature, thus leaving us with scarcity. Water sources are extremely vulnerable to the effects of climate change. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, one of the main effects includes pollution from runoff, which decreases our water quality. Drought and saltwater intrusion are also due to rising sea levels and are also dangers to our water sources. Aside from basic necessities like food and water, there are other necessities that are in danger as well. And then we'll talk about shelter. So as sea levels rise, temperature increases, and severe weather threatens our planet, our risk of losing viable areas that provide shelter is substantiated. According to Columbia Climate School, due to increases in severe weather, sea level rise, and other factors of climate change, there is evidence of potential forced migration, loss of life, property, and security. Another poignant factor of the effects on humans due to climate change is none other than human health, which is definitely a big part of the effects of climate change and how we are impacted. So health is especially affected by climate change through many ways, like pollution in the air, as well as dangerous spreads of disease, so things like COVID and that nature. According to the EPA, exposure, sensitivity, adaptive capabilities are the main things that are at play when it comes to climate change and health. In the next slide, we will further break down these factors and how they affect humans. So in this image obtained from the EPA's website, we will discuss the factors of climate change and how they impact human health. So as we discussed, exposure, adaptive capacity, and sensitivity are three of the main things that cause vulnerability when it comes to continued effects of climate change on human health. So health outcomes. Climate change hazards like air pollution and heat may cause or worsen certain illnesses or diseases. When vulnerable persons are exposed to hazards and do not have the capacity to adapt to them, they may experience a negative outcome. These individuals may experience physical ailments, immediate trauma, or other harmful effects on their mental health and well-being. Things like illness, stress, death, physical trauma, chronic disease, hospitalization, mental health, loss of function, and injury. These are all examples of how climate change really affects human health. So as we discussed, food and water, shelter, and human health are three main effects of climate change on humans. Next, we will discuss how climate change will affect national economies. So national economies are not exempt from climate change. Here are some of the ways that national economies may be affected. According to the Congressional Research Service, climate change will impact national economies by physical capital being damaged due to the effects of extreme weather. In this case, that would mean that our money or our physical property and things like that would be affected by extreme weather. According to NOAA, the U.S.'s economy is being heavily affected by natural disasters like hurricanes, tornadoes, and other natural disasters, putting our national debt at record highs. According to New South Wales government, Australia's economy is being heavily affected by extreme weather and may even see reduced property market values as high as $571 billion by 2030. And these are definitely due to things like wildfires, hurricanes, and other natural disasters, including floods and things like that. Next, we will discuss how will climate change affect the global economy. Like national and individual economies, the global economy will be affected in turn. According to Schroders Global, there are many effects of climate change on our global economy. The first of which is the effect on growth and inflation. Increasing temperatures have major impacts on growth or food production, which drives inflation. Schroders Global states, quote, Economic climate damage is defined as the fractional loss in annual economic output at any given level of warming compared to output in the same economy with no warming. The third and final example of the impact of climate change on our global economy are the regional effects. Of course, climate change will not hit all countries the same, meaning that developing countries are way more vulnerable to economic impacts, which in turn creates a global issue due to the effects of climate change. So to summarize, climate change will affect many areas of our world, not only physical as we discussed, but also intangible sources as well, like economic destruction and so forth. It is imperative that we take action regarding climate change immediately. It is devastating yet realistic to have tough conversations such as these, to understand the severity of the effects of climate change, not only on our health, but in terms of necessities, like we discussed, like food production and scarcity, water quality being depleted by pollution and rising sea levels, shelter being threatened by fluctuations in temperatures, as well as extreme weather, like lightning, hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, etc. And last but not least, obviously, our national and global economies. These are among the many reasons that we must take action against climate change and ensure continued efforts against our influence on climate change as a whole subject. Thank you kindly for listening to my presentation today. And of course, we have my reference page on the last part. Thank you.